Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you have thoughts about today's topic, write them in the comments. Today, we're talking about something almost everyone experiences: notifications.
Yes, notifications have become a constant part of daily life. Messages, emails, social media alerts, news updates. The phone is always trying to get our attention. Sometimes it feels like the device is calling us every few minutes. And many people check their phones automatically, even without thinking.
That automatic reaction is interesting. Sometimes I hear a notification sound and I reach for my phone immediately, even if I'm in the middle of reading, writing, or working. It's almost like a reflex.
Exactly. Notifications interrupt our attention, but they also create curiosity. The brain starts asking questions. Who sent that message? Is it important? Did I miss something? That curiosity makes it difficult to ignore the alert.
And the interruption itself is usually very small. Just a quick look at the phone, maybe 10 or 20 seconds. But after checking the notification, the mind often wanders somewhere else. Suddenly, those 20 seconds become several minutes.
That's where the real productivity loss happens. The interruption breaks the flow of concentration. And once focus is broken, the brain needs time to return to the original task. Sometimes several minutes are lost because of one small notification.
What makes this even more interesting is how normal it has become. Many people feel uncomfortable when their phone is silent for a long time. It almost feels strange when there are no alerts or messages. Silence from the phone can feel unusual now.
Which raises an important question. Are we simply using notifications as tools? Or have we become dependent on them for stimulation and connection? That line is becoming harder to see.
Let's talk more about interruptions during work. Imagine you are focusing on an important task. Maybe you are writing a report, studying, or solving a problem. Your mind slowly enters a focused state.
That focused state is very fragile. It usually takes several minutes for the brain to fully concentrate. Once attention becomes stable, thinking becomes clearer and faster. But a single notification can suddenly break that process.
Exactly. The moment the phone vibrates or makes a sound, your attention instantly shifts from the task to the device. Even if you try to ignore it, part of your mind becomes curious.
And that curiosity is powerful. The brain starts asking questions. Is it important? Did someone send a message? Even if the notification is not urgent, the mind still wants to check it. That small curiosity interrupts the mental flow.
What many people don't realize is that the real cost comes after the interruption. When you return to the task, your brain must rebuild concentration again. You have to remember where you were in the task and reconnect the ideas. That transition can take several minutes.
And if notifications appear every few minutes, the brain never stays focused long enough to reach deeper thinking. The day becomes a sequence of short attention fragments. Work continues, but the quality of thinking becomes weaker.
That's why many people say they feel busy all day, but finish very little meaningful work. The constant interruptions prevent them from reaching deeper concentration. It's not the amount of time they work, it's the quality of uninterrupted attention.
And ironically, many notifications are not even urgent. Social media alerts, promotional messages, or group chats rarely require immediate action. But the design of notifications makes them feel urgent anyway. The brain reacts before we have time to think.
One reason notifications are so powerful is the brain's reward system. Every time we check a notification, the brain experiences a small moment of curiosity and anticipation. We don't know what the message will say or who sent it. That uncertainty makes the brain very interested.
Yes, and that reaction is connected to dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical in the brain related to motivation and reward. When we expect something interesting or rewarding, dopamine levels increase. The brain becomes excited about discovering what the notification contains.
And the interesting part is that the reward is not always predictable. Sometimes the notification is important, sometimes it's not. But the brain doesn't know which one it will be. That unpredictability makes the urge to check even stronger.
It's similar to the psychology behind games or gambling. When rewards appear randomly, the brain becomes more engaged. Each notification could contain something exciting or meaningful. That possibility keeps people checking their phones repeatedly.
Which explains why people sometimes check their phones even without hearing a notification. The brain remembers the possibility of a reward. It starts wondering, maybe there's a new message. So the hand reaches for the phone automatically.
Exactly. Over time, this behavior can become a habit loop. Notification appears to curiosity, to phone check, to small reward. The brain learns that pattern and repeats it again and again.
And once that habit forms, it becomes difficult to ignore notifications. Even if we know the message is probably unimportant, the brain still expects a possible reward. That expectation keeps pulling our attention away from work.
Which means notifications are not only a communication tool anymore, they are also a psychological trigger, a small signal that activates curiosity and reward mechanisms in the brain. That's why resisting them can feel surprisingly difficult.
Another interesting part of this topic is our digital habits. Many people check their phones far more often than they realize. Sometimes it happens automatically, without a clear reason. The hand reaches for the phone almost by instinct.
Yes, and studies about smartphone usage show surprising numbers. Some people check their phones dozens, even hundreds of times per day. But if you ask them directly, they usually estimate a much smaller number. They simply don't notice how often the habit happens.
I've noticed that in my own behavior. Sometimes I unlock my phone just to check the time. But a few seconds later, I'm reading messages or scrolling through an app. The original reason disappears very quickly.
That's because many phone interactions follow a routine pattern. People unlock the phone, quickly check notifications, maybe open one app, then another app, and sometimes another. The whole sequence happens almost automatically.
And often, there is no clear purpose behind it. The brain simply expects something new or interesting to appear. A message, a like, an update, or a small piece of news. That expectation keeps the habit alive.
Over time, these small actions accumulate. Each phone check may only last a few seconds or minutes, but across an entire day, those moments can add up to a significant amount of time. Attention becomes fragmented again and again.
And perhaps the bigger effect is not just time, but mental space. Constantly checking the phone keeps the mind in a reactive mode. Instead of focusing deeply on one activity, the brain waits for the next signal. The mind becomes used to quick shifts in attention.
Which means digital habits slowly shape how we think and focus. The more often we interrupt ourselves with the phone, the harder it becomes to stay present with a single task. Attention becomes shorter and more restless.
Another layer of this issue is social pressure. Many people feel they must reply to messages immediately. Even if the message is not urgent, the expectation of a fast response is very strong. That pressure makes notifications feel more important than they really are.
Yes, and messaging apps have changed communication habits a lot. In the past, people sent emails and expected replies later in the day. Now with instant messaging, responses are expected within minutes. The pace of communication has become much faster.
And some features in messaging apps increase that pressure. For example, read receipts or last seen indicators. When someone knows you have read the message, they may expect an immediate reply.
Exactly. People sometimes worry that if they reply slowly, others may think they are ignoring them. So they interrupt whatever they are doing just to respond quickly. Work, conversations, or even relaxation can be interrupted.
That creates a constant sense of urgency. The phone becomes a device that demands attention all day. Even during personal time, people feel responsible for staying connected. The boundary between work, communication, and rest becomes blurry.
And interestingly, most of those messages are not actually urgent. They are normal conversations that could wait an hour or two. But because everyone responds quickly, the expectation of speed becomes the new social rule.
Which makes ignoring notifications emotionally difficult. It's not only about distraction anymore. It's also about relationships and social expectations. People don't want to appear rude or distant.
Exactly. That social pressure keeps people checking their phones constantly. Even when they want to focus or rest, the expectation of immediate response pulls their attention back.
After hearing all of this, one obvious question appears. What happens if someone simply turns most notifications off? It sounds like a small change, but it can completely transform how a person uses their phone. Suddenly, the phone stops demanding attention every few minutes.
Yes, many people who try this experiment report something interesting. At first, they feel a little uncomfortable. The phone becomes unusually quiet, and the brain expects the familiar alerts. That silence can feel strange in the beginning.
That reaction shows how strong the habit can be. When notifications disappear, the brain realizes how often it relied on them. People sometimes unlock their phones repeatedly, even when nothing new is there. It takes time for the mind to adjust.
But after a few days, many people notice the opposite effect. Without constant alerts, attention becomes calmer and more stable. Work sessions last longer, and the urge to check the phone becomes weaker. The device becomes a tool again instead of a constant interrupter.
I've heard people say they feel more present during conversations, too. When the phone is silent, it no longer pulls attention away every few minutes. People can focus more fully on the moment they are in. That change can feel surprisingly refreshing.
And interestingly, turning notifications off doesn't mean ignoring communication. Messages are still there when the person decides to check them. The difference is that the person controls the timing. Attention becomes intentional instead of reactive.
That shift in control seems very important. Instead of the phone deciding when we look at it, we decide when to check it. It's a small habit change, but it can reshape digital behavior.
And maybe that's the real goal of healthy digital habits. Technology should support our attention, not constantly compete for it. When notifications are reduced, focus becomes easier to protect, and daily life becomes a little quieter and more intentional.
Actually, I tried something similar last week. I decided to spend one full day with almost all notifications turned off. No social media alerts, no news notifications, and no email pop-ups. Only phone calls were allowed.
That sounds like an interesting experiment. What was your first reaction when the day started? Did it feel calm, or did it feel strange at the beginning? I imagine the silence from the phone might feel unusual.
It definitely felt strange in the morning. I kept checking my phone out of habit, but every time I unlocked it, there was nothing waiting for me. That made me realize how often I usually expect new notifications.
That's a powerful observation. It shows how much anticipation we normally carry in our minds. The brain becomes used to the constant possibility of new information. Without that signal, the mind needs time to adjust.
After a few hours, something interesting happened. I stopped checking my phone so often. My attention stayed longer on the things I was doing. Reading and writing both felt easier.
That sounds like a shift from reactive attention to intentional attention. Instead of responding to alerts, you decided when to look at your phone. That probably gave you more control over your focus, and maybe more mental quiet as well.
Yes, the quietness was noticeable. The day felt slower and more relaxed. I still checked messages a few times, but only when I chose to. The phone felt less like a boss and more like a tool.
That's a great description. Technology often becomes stressful when it constantly demands attention. When those demands disappear, people sometimes rediscover how peaceful focus can feel. It's almost like reclaiming mental space.
The most difficult moment came in the afternoon. I was working on a task that required a lot of concentration. Normally, when the task becomes a little boring or difficult, I check my phone for a quick break. But that day, there were no notifications and nothing new to see.
That must have felt uncomfortable at first. Many people use their phones as a small escape during difficult moments. When the brain feels a little tired or frustrated, it looks for an easy distraction. Without that option, the mind has to face the task directly.
Exactly. I noticed that I reached for my phone automatically several times. It was almost like a reflex. But every time I unlocked the screen, there was nothing waiting.
That moment probably revealed the habit very clearly. Sometimes we don't realize how often we interrupt ourselves. Removing notifications exposes the pattern of those automatic checks. The habit becomes visible.
Yes, and for a few minutes it felt slightly frustrating. My brain wanted a quick reward or distraction. But since the phone offered nothing new, I returned to the task. After a while, the urge slowly disappeared.
That's actually a very important psychological moment. When the brain cannot escape the difficult task easily, it sometimes decides to engage with the task more deeply. The resistance fades and concentration increases.
And that's exactly what happened. After that initial discomfort, I became much more focused. The task that seemed difficult earlier started to move forward smoothly. It felt like the brain finally accepted the work.
That's a fascinating result. Sometimes removing distractions doesn't immediately make work easier, but it removes the escape routes that usually break concentration. And that allows deeper focus to appear naturally.
One of the most surprising things happened later in the day. I suddenly realized that my mind felt much quieter. Normally, there are many small interruptions during the day, but without notifications, my thoughts felt more stable.
That sounds like a big mental shift. Constant alerts create a kind of background noise in the brain. Even when we are not looking at the phone, part of the mind is waiting for the next signal. Removing notifications probably removed that mental tension.
Exactly. I also noticed something else during conversations with people. When my phone was silent, I paid more attention to the person in front of me. I wasn't wondering if a message might appear.
That's an important social benefit. Phones sometimes divide our attention during conversations. Even a quick glance at a screen can interrupt the flow of a discussion. Without notifications, conversations can become deeper and more relaxed.
Another surprise appeared in the evening. I finished a task earlier than I expected. Usually, I would interrupt the work several times during the process. But that day, the focus stayed stronger.
That makes sense from a cognitive perspective. When attention remains stable, the brain can build stronger connections between ideas. Work becomes smoother and faster. Interruptions often slow progress more than we realize.
What surprised me most was how peaceful the day felt. Nothing dramatic changed in my schedule, but the absence of constant alerts created a calmer rhythm. It felt like the day had more space.
That's a very interesting result. Many people think productivity requires more tools and more apps. But sometimes productivity improves by removing things. Less noise can create more clarity.
After that experiment, I started thinking about a more balanced approach to notifications. Completely turning everything off might not be realistic for everyone. Some alerts are actually useful and sometimes necessary. So the real question becomes, which notifications are worth keeping?
That's a practical question. Not all notifications are equal. Some messages are important for communication, while others simply try to attract attention. The key is separating essential signals from unnecessary noise.
For example, phone calls are usually important. If someone calls you, it often means the message is urgent or personal. So keeping call notifications active makes sense. They serve a clear purpose.
Messages from close family members or work contacts might also be reasonable to keep. Those notifications can help maintain communication and coordination. But many other alerts, like promotional notifications or random app updates, rarely require immediate attention.
Social media notifications are interesting in that way. Many of them are designed to pull you back into the app. Likes, comments, or suggestions are rarely urgent. They mostly create curiosity rather than necessity.
Exactly. Those alerts are often part of what people call the attention economy. Apps compete to capture attention because attention leads to engagement. Engagement keeps people inside the platform longer.
So, a healthy notification strategy might look like this. Keep alerts that support real communication. Reduce alerts that only try to capture attention. That small adjustment can protect focus during the day.
And another helpful habit is checking messages intentionally instead of instantly. Instead of reacting every time the phone signals something, people can choose specific moments to check updates. That keeps communication active while protecting concentration.
That approach feels more balanced. The phone still remains useful and connected to the world, but it stops interrupting attention every few minutes. Technology becomes something we manage instead of something that manages us. One challenge with reducing notifications is workplace communication. Many jobs require fast responses to messages, emails, or team updates. In some environments, people feel they must always be available. That makes turning notifications off seem unrealistic.
Yes, modern workplaces often value quick replies. Teams use messaging apps, project tools, and email at the same time. When several communication channels are active, notifications multiply quickly. The workday becomes a constant stream of alerts.
And that can create a difficult balance. Employees want to stay responsive and cooperative with their colleagues, but constant interruptions make deep work almost impossible. Important tasks require uninterrupted thinking.
Some companies are starting to recognize that problem. Instead of expecting instant responses all day, they encourage focus hours where employees reduce communication. During those periods, notifications are minimized so people can concentrate.
That sounds like a healthy compromise. Communication still happens, but it is organized more intentionally. Instead of constant interruptions, messages are grouped into specific times. That allows deeper work to happen between those periods.
Another strategy is prioritizing communication channels. For example, urgent issues might come through calls or a specific message channel. Less urgent discussions can happen through email or slower platforms. That hierarchy helps reduce unnecessary alerts.
That makes sense because not every message has the same level of urgency. When everything feels urgent, attention becomes scattered. But when communication is structured, people know when to respond immediately and when they can wait. That clarity protects focus.
In the end, it may be less about eliminating notifications completely. Instead, it's about creating smarter communication habits. Teams can design systems that allow both responsiveness and concentration. The goal is balance between connection and focus.
This idea leads to something many people talk about today: digital boundaries. Being connected is useful, but constant availability can become exhausting. If every message demands immediate attention, the mind never truly rests. So the question becomes, how to stay reachable without being constantly interrupted?
Yes, and digital boundaries are basically rules we create for our own attention. Instead of reacting to every message instantly, people decide when and how they respond. That might mean checking messages at certain times instead of continuously. Communication remains open, but attention becomes more protected.
One simple example is separating work and personal time. Some people silence work notifications in the evening. Others keep their phone away during meals or conversations. These small boundaries help the brain relax.
Another approach is communicating those boundaries clearly. If colleagues or friends understand that you check messages at specific times, they usually respect that rhythm. Expectations become more realistic.
That's important because many interruptions come from assumptions. People assume everyone is always available because smartphones exist. But constant availability isn't always healthy for focus or well-being. Boundaries help restore balance.
And, interestingly, boundaries can improve communication quality. When responses are more intentional instead of rushed, conversations often become clearer and more thoughtful. Speed isn't always the same as effectiveness.
That's a good point. Sometimes responding instantly creates short, distracted replies. Waiting a little and answering with full attention can actually improve the conversation. Focus benefits both work and relationships.
So, digital boundaries are not about disconnecting completely. They are about deciding when attention should be open and when it should be protected. That balance allows technology to stay useful without becoming overwhelming. And that balance might be one of the most important habits in modern life.
Creating digital boundaries sounds helpful in theory, but the real question is whether people can maintain those habits long-term. Many people start with strong motivation, then, slowly, the old habits return.
That's a very realistic concern. Habits connected to phones are deeply integrated into daily routines. Messages, news, social media, and work communication all happen through the same device. Changing those patterns requires consistent awareness.
And sometimes, the challenge is not only the habit itself, the environment also encourages constant connection. Friends expect fast replies, workplaces expect quick responses, and apps constantly try to bring people back.
That's why long-term change usually happens gradually. Instead of removing everything at once, people adjust small behaviors step by step. For example, turning off just a few unnecessary notifications, or setting specific moments during the day to check messages.
That gradual approach feels more sustainable. When changes are small, the brain adapts more naturally. Over time, those small adjustments form new habits. The person slowly becomes less reactive to the phone.
Another factor is awareness. When people notice how notifications affect their focus and mood, they often become more motivated to protect their attention. The benefits make the habit easier to maintain.
I think the key idea is balance rather than strict rules. Technology is still useful for communication and information. The goal is not to eliminate it completely. The goal is to use it consciously.
Exactly. Long-term change usually comes from understanding how technology affects us. Once people recognize the cost of constant interruptions, they often become more intentional about how they interact with their devices.
After all this discussion, I keep thinking about the future. Technology will not disappear from our lives. In fact, digital tools will probably become even more present in work and communication. So the real question is how we can use them in a healthier way.
That's an important perspective. Healthy technology use might not mean less technology. It might mean more conscious technology. People choosing when and how to interact with their devices.
In that future, attention might become a valuable skill. Just like time management or communication skills, people may learn how to protect their focus in a world full of digital signals. Schools and workplaces might even teach those habits.
That would make sense. Because attention is connected to creativity, learning, and problem solving. When people can focus deeply, they can produce better ideas and better work. Protecting attention may become a key part of personal productivity.
I also imagine technology itself becoming smarter about attention. Instead of sending constant alerts, devices might help people group messages or schedule notifications more thoughtfully. Technology could support focus instead of interrupting it.
That would create a healthier relationship between people and their devices. Instead of reacting to every signal, people would interact with technology intentionally. Communication would still happen, but without constant distraction.
And maybe that balance is the real goal. Technology helping us connect and learn while our attention remains calm and focused. a world where digital tools support our lives instead of controlling them.
If you enjoyed this conversation about notifications and digital habits, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. And we'd love to hear your experience. Do notifications distract you during the day?
Tell us in the comments, how many notifications do you receive in a normal day? And have you ever tried turning some of them off? We're curious to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.